One Piece is a mythology. I've been thinking about this for a while now, and the more I think about it, the more it makes sense, because when you first start the series, and then when you go back to reread it, you would then have a lot more context and understanding of the events that are happening within the series. Spoilers for, like, where we are now, but going back through One Piece knowing that Luffy is the sun god, and then rereading One Piece with that knowledge from the very beginning, puts a lot of things into a lot of recontextualized points. It doesn't take away from anything from the initial story, but it adds a lot of new context and more understanding. And the reason why I think it works well as a mythology is because, you can't convince me that One Piece has not effectively become a religion at this point. And looking back on this story through a mythological lens makes a lot of sense as to retellings in the actual world of One Piece, say hundreds or thousands of years from now. You'll have citizens in the One Piece world who will look back on Luffy's adventures on whatever way, shape, or form that they are told, and they will effectively be deified, because Luffy, for all intents and purposes, is a god in their eyes. He is the sun god whose current crew consists of the King of Hell, a weather witch, a prophet whose words will speak the future, the banished prince of an evil kingdom, a transforming Tanuki doctor, a flower demon, a mechanical man, a living skeleton, and the son of the sea. This is the entourage that Luffy is rocking up with wherever he goes, so say in 1,000 years people read about those stories, this will be an entirely different context, because they'll go into these stories knowing that, oh, this is a god just hanging out with the King of Hell going to somewhere like Whiskey Peak. And when you have that knowledge, everything becomes so much crazier. Because in Whiskey Peak, one of my least favorite moments in the series is when Luffy just attacks Zoro for, taking out everyone else. I have talked about this moment before and how Luffy being the sun god does recontextualize this moment. I still don't like it, but looking at it through a mythological lens makes it way more interesting. Because what has effectively happened is that the sun god shows up on an island where they are greeted with a vast bounty of food, unbeknownst to them that the inhabitants of the islands are actually trying to trick them in order to sacrifice them for a greater profit. But the only one of these companions to not fall for it is the Weather Witch, who sees through the deception, and the King of Hell, who is immune to their charm. So in response, the King of Hell just decides to wipe out the inhabitants of the island, and shortly after, the sun god wakes up, sees one of the dying inhabitants, tells him that, oh, it was the King of Hell who did this to us. Enraged that his offering has been tainted, decides to attack his own friend. The King of Hell tries to explain himself, but the sun god won't listen, and they end up fighting. Other people try to intervene, but their fight immediately blows everyone else away. They are only stopped by the Weather Witch, who is able to scold them like children and tells them that, hey, we have a new adventure, we have to go help this princess. Which then ties Alabasta into the mythology as effectively a land of holy significance. They decide to set off, and then they are encountered by the Flower Demon, who doesn't attack them directly, and in fact even tries to help them, showing that she may change sides, which comes down later in the myth. Tell me this isn't something that sounds like it came straight out of Journey to the West. And that myth fits with the rest of the series going forward, or even all the way back in the East Blue. They sail off Whiskey Peak, they find a land of giants and befriend them. After that, the Weather Witch falls ill, so they go to an island to recruit the transforming doctor, who is the best in his field. In doing so, they oust the tyrant, who honestly was an afterthought, and then they make it to Alabasta, where they're able to take out the living embodiment of the desert, the one who has stolen the reign of the land, and afterwards, the Flower Demon decides to join them. And I love that this is a legitimate summary of the story, because to people who have no idea what's going on, or who haven't read the story, this makes absolutely no sense. But if you have caught up to One Piece, that makes complete sense. What I just explained was utter nonsense, but if you have the context, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it fits very similarly to how mythology is passed down. If you are familiar with these characters and these events, it's better understood whenever they come back up. But if you don't know about any of that yet, it's easier for you to start at the beginning. I just think that's really cool. And yes, technically you can do this with virtually any other story, but I like the way that One Piece has it set up, because again, it's a Journey to the West style story. It's a story about the journey. The end goal isn't what's important, it's what we have done along the way and the lessons that they have learned. I just thought that was really cool. I hope whatever I said made sense.